Hi, this is Nitya Griffith with Karma Chameleon. Thank you for joining me today. If you are interested in Bazi Chinese Astrology and Feng Shui, please subscribe and follow. So we're going to continue with stories from my Feng Shui clients from the past 20 years. I never forget a client or a house. These are dear people who have been continuing an ongoing relationship with me all of these years. And one of the ways that I love to stay in touch with my clients is that I do New Year updates for homes and for astrology charts. And so every year, as the energies shift and change in our lives and in our homes, I have been keeping up with their story and their journey with their home and their lives and their children growing up and getting off to college and then getting married and going off to law school. And it's really been very fun. I feel honored to have clients that have stuck with me for so many years. So here it is. These early 2000s, and there aren't smartphones. I don't know how. These are the early days of the internet too. This woman contacted me and found me online, which again was really so new back then, and told me that she was in this panic because her husband was diagnosed with cancer and was having a lot of complications from surgery. Like everything that could go wrong was going wrong. I remember exactly where I was standing when she called me in tears. Desperate. What could I possibly do to save my husband's life? And what an interesting choice she made in hiring me. It really is equivalent to you're about to foreclose on your house and you buy a lottery ticket as your last ditch effort, or you go out gambling with that last $100 bill. And it felt like that to me. It felt like a person in a desperate situation looking for any answers. And so I looked at his Bazi Chinese Astrology, and I could see where at this current time of his life, he was susceptible to a lot of stress and stress-related illness. So I asked her about that after I did his chart. Oh, she said, my God, he's got this big commute to New York City every day. It's a really high-stress job. He's, often dealing with really insensitive people that are really critical and judgmental and harsh and all of this. And I was like, whoa. So then I asked her about the history of their house. And the previous two owners, the husbands, had all died premature deaths. Why would you move into a house like that? I'm thinking, well, there they are. So I asked her what was going on with the house. And she said, we're in the middle of a full renovation. Now, I will tell you about renovations. First of all, if you're doing a major renovation, leave. Find an Airbnb to spend the length of the renovation time to protect you and your family. Because when you renovate a house, it's like you're shaking it up like a snow globe. All the energy is so agitated. If anything could go wrong, it's going to go wrong. And it really isn't safe. You're also breathing in all kinds of stuff that's being lifted up. So it's always better to leave your house and not return 30 days after the renovation is finished, to allow the chi to settle back down. I asked her, where are you in this renovation process? Can you stop now? And they were able to get to a point where they were wrapping it up. Like it sounded like it was near the tail end. So again, this is back before smartphones. So she took pictures, old-fashioned phone, camera, and she mailed me, snail mail, a packet that had pictures of all the angles of the rooms of her house, inside, outside, so I could see the house. In her bedroom was a painting of a couple outrunning a storm. Sometimes we don't even realize what we have on display in our house. Who wants the energy of that? I remember my parents in their living room had this ginormous painting of a shipwreck with all these people dying in different states of death and dismemberment, and a woman clinging to her husband on the beach. And it's like, and they were, do you want this when they were moving? No, none of us wanted that painting. So these dear people, I told them, if you can stop the renovation and pause it, do so. Take that picture down. And then they were really big into maritime history, ships and all kinds of things, battles out in the sea. And it turned out that someone had gifted them a very treasured sword. And while the renovation was going on, they decided to store it under the bed. My friends, this is how you create the perfect setup for a disaster to take place in someone's life. You've got someone with a susceptible astrology. You've got someone who is living out this difficult astrology with a really crappy job, with a big commute and a lot of stress. You've got artwork suggesting disaster impending, and a sword, a battle sword under the bed, and a major renovation that is just about finished, that's been going on for months in the house that you've been living in. And you're going to ask me why this man has contracted cancer, had surgery to remove the cancer, had complications, infections, had to go back into the hospital, nearly died. I mean, horror. He has been in remission from cancer ever since that long distance consultation I did. And I consider them one of my great success stories. We got rid of the sword. We got rid of the picture. We got all the renovations calmed down and quieted and finished. Is there anything else? The job. Couldn't change the job. But what we did do was we looked at ways for him to protect himself in the way that he was living his life, finding healthier ways to manage the stress. Okay. And that was really important. Years later, I remember the woman of the house knew where the 5-star was and that she wasn't supposed to do any digging, any kind of construction. And she was out in the yard and she was banging on something. she stepped backwards into her hole and sprained her ankle. And of course, she sends me an email. She's like, Lydia, you wouldn't believe it. I should have known better. Outside where the 5-star is. Lesson learned, she said. You know, it's really something to recognize that our home is such a reflection of ourselves. We are in relationship energetically with our home and our property, as well as, you know, the living creatures and people we live with. And to honor and respect that. To really, you know, when I hammer on anything, I'm always saying a prayer. You know, and yesterday I had a tree planting party. And we dug over 40 holes on this property and planted bushes and trees. Over 40 bushes and trees. And as I was going to bed last night, a poem came to me that I was seeing the land and all my friends that came and were holding shovels and putting their hands on the earth. And I saw every one of those holes as a mark of friendship and love. And I'll tell you something, I also know that if I had hired people that I didn't know, like a landscaping company or something, or an arborist to come in and plant all that, it would have felt like a very different energy of those 40 plus holes on the ground. Do you see that? And it could have had a negative effect on me and my life. So look at how you're living in your house. Look at how you're living. Yeah, and I am so happy that this man's health has continued to be stable and that they have continued to follow by Feng Shui principles to ensure that their health stays stable. And when there is a crisis, that they reach out to me. Because inevitably they know that if there is something happening with their health, there is very likely something happening in the house. So let's continue with these fabulous stories because we all can learn from them. And yeah, be well.